The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the coffee-stained table. I stood there, cradling a steaming mug in my hands, lost in thoughts that seemed to swirl like the steam rising from my drink. Seattle's familiar gray sky loomed outside, but inside, I felt a storm brewing within me. My husband was already at work, leaving me alone with the echoes of our life together, a life that felt increasingly distant. Today marked the return of my stepson from college. I had watched him grow over the years, a boy transformed into a man. His absence had been palpable, and now that he was back, I felt an unsettling mix of excitement and apprehension. What had once been innocent affection now twisted into something more complicated. As I took a sip of coffee, I tried to shake off the thoughts creeping into my mind. The doorbell rang just as I set my mug down. My heart raced as I opened the door to find him standing there with that familiar smile, youthful yet somehow more mature. He had filled out during his time away, his shoulders were broader, and his confidence radiated in ways I hadn't anticipated. "Hey," he said casually, but his eyes held a depth that sent shivers down my spine. "Welcome back," I managed to say, forcing a smile despite the flutter of emotion stirring inside me. We exchanged pleasantries as he stepped inside, and for a moment, the air felt charged with unspoken words. I offered him coffee, and we settled at the kitchen table where so many family meals had taken place over the years. As we talked about his studies and future plans, I couldn't help but notice how his laughter filled the room differently now, like music that resonated deeply within me. Each shared joke felt like an invitation to something more than just familial connection. "Seattle hasn't changed much," he remarked with a chuckle after tasting the coffee. "Still as rainy as ever." "Some things never change," I replied softly, trying to keep my tone light while feeling anything but. As we conversed about mundane topics, his favorite coffee spots near campus or upcoming local festivals, I could sense an unspoken tension building between us. The way he leaned forward when speaking made my heart race. It was as if he were drawing me into an intimate space where only we existed. But this wasn't right, he was my stepson. A sudden noise from outside broke the moment. The muffled laughter of children playing in the park nearby reminded me of simpler times when family gatherings were filled with joy rather than this strange complexity looming over us now. Later that afternoon, while tidying up around the house, I stumbled upon an old photo album tucked away on a shelf. Flipping through its pages brought back memories of family vacations and birthdays filled with laughter, a stark contrast to how things felt now. My husband's face smiled back at me from those photos, however, it was hard to reconcile that image with our current reality where distance seemed to stretch between us like an insurmountable chasm. I found myself lost in thought when suddenly there was another knock at the door. This time it was my husband returning home earlier than expected. The atmosphere shifted instantly. I quickly closed the album and tucked it away before greeting him. "How was your day?" he asked absent-mindedly as he dropped his bag by the door. "Just cleaning up," I replied curtly while glancing toward my stepson who was casually leaning against the counter. He nodded but didn't seem fully present. His mind appeared elsewhere as he scrolled through his phone messages without making eye contact. A flicker of concern crossed my mind. Perhaps this distance between us wasn't just mine alone. As evening settled in and we gathered around for dinner, a ritual that felt increasingly obligatory, I noticed how little we spoke compared to before. Conversations were stilted, laughter felt forced as if we were all playing roles rather than being ourselves. After dinner, my stepson excused himself under pretense of needing to prepare for work later that night while leaving behind an unsettling silence at our table. My husband remained engrossed in his phone again, a habit that had become all too familiar lately, and it left me feeling isolated even amidst those who should have made me feel secure. I retreated into our living room after cleaning up, the soft glow of lamps casting shadows on walls adorned with memories long past, but even those memories couldn't drown out what lingered beneath everything else, tension mixed with temptation lurking just beyond reach. Later that night, while lying awake beside my husband who snored softly next to me, thoughts spiraled out of control as if they were racing against time itself. The weight of attraction pressing heavily upon me despite knowing better than to entertain such notions about someone so close yet so far removed from what should be appropriate boundaries. Just then came another knock at our bedroom door. It startled both of us awake momentarily before realizing it was only our stepson seeking something left behind earlier in haste. A chance encounter laden with uncertainty hung thick in air around us like fog rolling off Puget Sound. "Sorry," he murmured sheepishly upon entering before quickly retrieving what he needed without lingering too long. Yet even those brief seconds ignited feelings buried deep within me, once more leaving behind confusion mingled with desire, threatening everything else surrounding us altogether like fragile glass waiting for impact against hard ground below. As he exited quietly after thanking us both again for dinner earlier tonight, I turned toward my husband who lay still asleep next to me, wondering if any semblance of normalcy would ever return again after everything already set into motion tonight. The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the breakfast table. I busied myself with coffee, trying to shake off the lingering tension from last night. My husband was already seated, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, yet it did little to soothe my racing thoughts. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, barely looking up. "Not really," I replied, pouring my cup. "I had a lot on my mind." His eyes flicked up momentarily, then returned to his screen. "Same here." The conversation faded into silence as we both sipped our drinks. Later that day, I found myself at Pike Place Market. The vibrant energy of locals and tourists blended seamlessly with the scents of fresh flowers and roasted coffee beans. I wandered aimlessly among the stalls, attempting to distract myself from thoughts of him. But every corner turned brought memories of our recent encounters rushing back, his laughter echoing in my ears like a haunting melody. As I reached a small cafe tucked away from the bustling market, I spotted him seated at a corner table. He was engrossed in a book but looked up as if sensing my presence. Our eyes locked for an instant. It felt electric, charged with unspoken words and hidden emotions. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, trying to sound casual while my heart raced. "Of course," he replied, shifting his belongings aside to make room for me. The conversation flowed easily between us as we shared stories about life and dreams, conversations that felt more intimate than they should have. He spoke about his plans for the future and what he had learned during his time away. Each word drew me closer to him. Then came that moment when our hands brushed against each other while reaching for the same pastry on the table. A jolt of warmth shot through me as I quickly withdrew my hand, feeling heat creep up my cheeks. He looked at me with wide eyes. There was an understanding in that brief touch that left us both breathless. "I'm sorry," he said softly, breaking the tension that hung in the air like fog over Puget Sound. "It's fine," I managed to reply, though it was anything but fine inside me. We continued talking, but now with an undercurrent of something deeper, a shared secret swirling between us like steam rising from our cups. As we delved into personal struggles and vulnerabilities, I found myself confiding in him more than I intended. "I just feel stuck sometimes," he admitted quietly after sharing his own fears about adulthood and expectations. "Like no one really understands what I'm going through." I nodded slowly, feeling those words resonate within me. "I get that," I said carefully. "Sometimes it feels like no one sees beyond the surface." In that moment of honesty, something shifted between us, an understanding that transcended our roles as stepmother and stepson. The air grew thick with unspoken emotions as we lingered on each other's gaze longer than necessary. "What if," he began hesitantly before stopping himself. "What if what?" My heart raced at his unfinished thought. He leaned closer slightly. The world around us faded into a blur as all that mattered was this fragile connection we were building amid laughter and shared secrets over coffee. We kissed, he finally blurted out before quickly looking away as if embarrassed by his own admission. My breath caught in my throat, disbelief washed over me alongside an undeniable thrill coursing through my veins. It was reckless yet exhilarating, the very thing I had been trying to suppress since his return. Maybe we shouldn't, I started but trailed off as our eyes met again, a silent agreement passing between us despite logic screaming otherwise. The moment felt suspended in time until reality crashed back in, a reminder of who we were and all that could be lost if this went further than stolen glances or accidental touches at family gatherings. As we parted ways later that afternoon, an unresolved tension lingered between us like an open wound waiting for healing or destruction, perhaps both at once. Back home later that evening, my husband greeted me with dinner already prepared, a rare gesture on his part these days, and yet it felt hollow compared to what had transpired earlier with him. "How was your day?" he asked casually while plating food onto our plates without much enthusiasm behind those words. "It was fine," I replied mechanically while forcing a smile upon my lips despite everything swirling inside me still. The thrill mixed with fear gnawing at my insides like a persistent ache refusing to fade away completely. Even now sitting across from him at dinner table meant for family bonding moments lost somewhere along way too soon since last summer when everything changed forever onward. As we ate silently together watching television flickering images across room, my mind drifted back again toward those stolen moments earlier today until suddenly something caught my attention. His phone buzzed loudly against countertop nearby where he'd left it unattended earlier while cooking dinner before heading back towards table again just moments ago. Curiosity got better hold over me, prompting instinctual urge check out screen displaying message notification lighting up darkened space around kitchen area briefly illuminating shadows lurking beneath surface waiting patiently for chance reveal secrets, hidden deep down below where they belonged all along. I glanced sideways towards him hoping distraction would keep him occupied long enough so could steal quick peek without raising suspicions, but then realization hit hard when saw name sender flash across display. It belonged someone named Sarah, a name unfamiliar yet somehow setting off alarm bells ringing loudly within heart pounding wildly against rib cage demanding attention urgently needing answers right now. "What's this?" My voice trembled slightly betraying nerves bubbling underneath surface threatening spill over any second now unless stopped somehow before chaos erupted fully around us both leaving nothing but wreckage behind afterward. He glanced down immediately frowning slightly confusion etched across features before quickly snatching phone away from view shielding it protectively against chest instinctively reacting defensively without even thinking twice about consequences actions taken next. Moment after seeing expression change drastically upon hearing question posed just seconds earlier. "I don't think you should read someone else's messages," he replied sharply voice tinged irritation evident spilling forth unfiltered emotions spilling out unceremoniously without warning catching off guard completely leaving little room breathe let alone think straight anymore amidst turmoil brewing rapidly beneath surface. Previously calm exterior facade crumbling away piece by piece slowly unraveling everything built carefully over years spent together side by side sharing lives intertwined. Intricately bound forevermore through love loyalty trust shattered irreparably now threatening collapse entirely under weight burdens carried alone far too long already weighing heavily hearts souls alike desperately seeking solace anywhere found amidst chaos erupting. Around them both suddenly spiraling downward fast uncontrollably outreach grasp slipping further away every second ticking clock counting down toward inevitable conclusion looming ahead menacingly just beyond horizon waiting. Patiently ready strike when least expected leaving nothing behind except memories fading slowly darkness enveloping everything once bright vibrant full life lived passionately pursued relentlessly chased after tirelessly until finally caught slipping through fingers. Grasp only remnants left behind scattered ground below lost forever never return again. The days blurred together, each one echoing the last as the weight of unspoken words pressed heavily on my chest. I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, navigating between guilt and a longing I hadn't expected to confront. The moments we shared grew more intimate, charged with an energy that both exhilarated and terrified me. Each glance lingered longer, each brush of skin igniting something deep within. I often escaped to the local cafe, a small refuge amidst the chaos of my thoughts. The barista knew my order by heart, dark roast with just a hint of cream, and served it with a knowing smile, as if she sensed my turmoil. As I sat at a corner table, watching the world bustle by outside, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since he returned. He was no longer the boy I had known. He had transformed into a man with depth and complexity that drew me in like a moth to flame. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, touching on dreams and fears, revealing layers I hadn't anticipated. In those moments, laughter mingled with vulnerability, creating an intoxicating blend that left me yearning for more. Yet guilt gnawed at me relentlessly. My husband's increasing distance was palpable. He buried himself in work while I wrestled with feelings that felt both exhilarating and forbidden. The tension in our home thickened like fog rolling over Seattle's waterfront, a constant reminder of the secrets lurking just beneath the surface. One afternoon, as we strolled through Pike Place Market, surrounded by vibrant flowers and the scent of fresh coffee brewing nearby, he shared something unexpected about his past, a regret that had haunted him for years. "I should have fought harder for what mattered," he confessed quietly, eyes focused on the ground ahead. Something shifted within me then. It was as if we were peeling back layers of our lives together. His pain resonated with my own hidden struggles. "What do you mean?" I asked softly. "I let opportunities slip away," he replied, glancing up briefly before looking away again. "Sometimes it feels like everything I touch falls apart." His honesty struck a chord deep inside me. I wanted to comfort him but feared where that impulse would lead us both. Instead, silence enveloped us as we continued walking side by side. The following days were filled with an electric tension that crackled in the air whenever we were near each other. Every accidental touch sent shivers down my spine. Every lingering gaze ignited a fire within me that was impossible to ignore. Then came that moment, the one where everything shifted irrevocably between us. It happened late one evening after dinner when my husband had retreated to his study for another late-night work session. We sat together on the couch, sharing stories about our childhoods. An innocent exchange turned intimate under the soft glow of lamplight. "I never thought we'd end up here," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Neither did I," I replied honestly. As our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity, something unspoken hung between us, a magnetic pull drawing us closer until finally, our lips met. In that instant, everything else faded away, the guilt, the fear, all replaced by a dizzying rush of connection that felt both liberating and terrifying at once. But reality crashed back in just as quickly as it had vanished. Panic surged through me like ice water. "What have we done?" My voice trembled as I pulled away slightly. He looked at me wide-eyed yet resolute. "I don't know," he admitted softly but firmly. "But it feels real." That admission hung heavily between us as uncertainty settled back into place like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. Days passed slowly after that night, a blur of stolen glances and awkward silences around our home filled with memories now tinged with confusion and desire alike. My husband's suspicions grew. He had begun to notice subtle changes in my demeanor, the way laughter seemed forced or how my gaze drifted toward places it shouldn't. One evening while preparing dinner together, a mundane task turned fraught with tension. He casually asked about my phone usage lately. "You've been on it quite a bit," he remarked casually while chopping vegetables at the counter beside me. I shrugged off his comment but felt my heart race nonetheless. Paranoia crept into every corner of my mind like shadows stretching across dimly lit spaces. What if he found out? What would happen then? Later that night, after our son had gone to bed and silence enveloped the house once more, I heard him mutter something under his breath while scrolling through his phone messages across from me on the couch. "What is this?" My stomach dropped as dread washed over me, instinctively knowing what lay behind those words before they even left his lips. it was there waiting silently beneath layers upon layers of unspoken truths ready to unravel everything around us all too soon. "What are you talking about?" I asked cautiously, trying not to betray any hint of panic creeping into my voice. He looked up sharply, meeting my gaze head-on, his expression unreadable yet laced with suspicion simmering just beneath surface calmness. "A message? From someone named Jess?" My heart raced faster than ever before. I couldn't breathe properly now. It felt like time slowed down around us, leaving only this moment suspended forevermore, hanging precariously above everything else, threatening collapse entirely under weight burdens carried alone far too long already, weighing heavily, hearts, souls alike desperately seeking solace anywhere found amidst chaos erupting around them, both suddenly spiraling downward fast, uncontrollably outreach grasp slipping further away, every second ticking clock counting down toward inevitable conclusion looming ahead menacingly just beyond horizon, waiting patiently ready strike when least expected, leaving nothing behind except memories fading slowly, darkness enveloping everything once bright, vibrant, full life lived, passionately pursued, relentlessly chased after tirelessly until finally caught slipping through fingers' grasp, only remnants left behind, scattered ground below, lost forever, never return again. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow in the room. I lay there, the weight of last night's events pressing down on me. We spent the night together, tangled in sheets and unspoken words, a moment suspended in time that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. My heart raced at the thought of what we had crossed into, a territory filled with uncertainty and guilt. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake him. The remnants of our shared intimacy lingered in the air, a bittersweet reminder of choices made. I moved to the kitchen, hoping that brewing coffee would ground me amidst the chaos swirling in my mind. The familiar aroma filled the space, but it couldn't mask the tension that had settled within me. As I poured myself a cup, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it nervously. It was a message from my husband. "Can we talk?" My stomach dropped. What could he have seen? What did he suspect? Anxiety gnawed at me as I considered my options. Ignoring it wasn't feasible. Avoiding confrontation only delayed inevitable truths. I took a deep breath and typed back, "Sure." "When?" His reply came quickly, "After work." The rest of the day felt like an eternity. Each tick of the clock echoed loudly in my mind as I moved through mundane tasks, checking emails, attending meetings, pretending everything was normal when inside I was anything but composed. My thoughts kept drifting back to him, the way he looked at me with those intense eyes that seemed to see right through me, piercing layers of pretense and fear. During lunch at a nearby cafe, I sat across from a mutual friend who had always been perceptive about relationships. She studied me closely as we sipped our coffees, her brow furrowed with concern. "Something's off," she said finally, breaking the silence that had enveloped us. "You look different." I forced a smile, but it faltered under her scrutiny. "Just tired," I replied weakly. She wasn't convinced. "You can tell me if something's going on." The urge to confide in her surged within me but was quickly quelled by fear of judgment and consequence. Instead, I changed the subject to something trivial, work gossip, but her gaze lingered on me like a shadow. Later that evening, as I prepared for my husband's return home, anxiety twisted in my stomach like a knot pulled too tight. The door creaked open just as dinner was set on the table, a simple meal meant to convey normalcy amidst turmoil. "How was your day?" he asked casually as he hung up his coat. "Fine," I replied too quickly, avoiding his eyes as I busied myself with serving food. He paused for a moment before taking his seat across from me. The tension hung thick between us like fog rolling off Puget Sound, a heavy blanket obscuring clarity and truth. After several bites in silence, he finally spoke again, his tone shifting to something more serious. "I found something on your phone." My heart dropped into my stomach as panic rose within me like bile threatening to escape. "What do you mean?" "Messages," he said simply, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "What kind of messages?" "I think you know," he replied evenly but with an edge of hurt creeping into his voice. In that moment, everything shattered around us, the facade built over years crumbling beneath unrelenting pressure. My mind raced back to every exchanged glance and every fleeting touch that led us here, the secret smiles shared over family dinners and whispered words late at night when no one else could hear. "I can explain," I stammered helplessly. "Can you?" His voice trembled slightly, an echo of disbelief mixed with pain. Before I could respond further or offer any semblance of justification for actions taken under duress of emotion and attraction gone awry, his phone buzzed on the table between us, drawing our attention away from each other momentarily. He picked it up without hesitation. Curiosity etched across his features shifted abruptly into confusion, then anger as he read whatever message had come through. "What is this?" he demanded sharply, his voice rising slightly, now tinged with frustration laced through disbelief, once more filling air heavy around us both, thickening atmosphere already strained, painfully taut, straining against invisible forces pulling tightly apart, threatening rupture completely, obliterating any hope held on to desperately until now. "I don't know what you mean." He glared at me accusingly, then turned back toward his phone again, scrolling furiously through whatever information lay hidden behind its screen before looking back up, meeting gaze unwavering, now reflecting storm brewing inside him, ready explode outward, send shrapnel flying everywhere, destroying everything left behind, shattered pieces scattered ground below where once stood foundation solid, built trust, loyalty, love shared between two people bound together by commitment, vows exchanged years ago. Fading memories slipping away. "Is this about him? Is this why you've been acting so strange lately?" His voice cut through darkness wrapping around us, suffocating any lingering remnants, hope left clinging desperately onto frayed edges, unraveling rapidly, spiraling downward faster than either could comprehend, unable grasp reality unfolding right before eyes wide open, witnessing destruction imminent, impending doom looming large above both heads, ready strike when least expected, leaving nothing behind except echoes haunting hearts, souls alike forever changed, irrevocably altered, paths diverging sharply, never cross again. I opened my mouth trying form words, find some way salvage what remained, but nothing came forth. Instead silence enveloped us both, thickening sense dread settling deep within bones, aching heart racing faster than ever before, pounding rhythm, chaos surrounding, drowning out all reason, rational thought evaporating into thin air, leaving only raw emotions exposed, bare, vulnerable, laid open for scrutiny, judgment without mercy. Then suddenly, a knock at the door jolted us both from our spiraling descent into despair, breaking tension momentarily, allowing breath drawn sharply together, released slowly, exhaling fears, anxieties out into world beyond, walls surrounding, keeping secrets hidden deep inside, locked away, safeguarded fiercely against exposure, vulnerability feared most. "Who is it?" he called out sharply, still reeling from discovery made moments earlier, searching desperately for answers, clarity, understanding, while simultaneously grappling with emotions swirling wildly around, threatening consume entirely, leaving nothing behind except ashes. Memories fading slowly, darkness enveloping everything once bright, vibrant, full life lived, passionately pursued, relentlessly chased after, tirelessly until finally caught slipping through fingers' grasp, only remnants left behind, scattered ground below, lost forever, never return again. The knock echoed through the silence, sharp and intrusive. I exchanged a glance with him, an unspoken agreement hanging heavy in the air. We both knew the world outside our sanctuary was waiting, oblivious to the storm brewing within these walls. My heart raced as I stood frozen, caught between the life I had built and the one that was now so tantalizingly close yet impossibly out of reach. "Who is it?" he called again, his voice strained. The tension between us shifted as we both tried to mask our anxiety. I could feel my pulse quicken, a reminder of everything at stake. "It's just your father," came the muffled reply from beyond the door. Relief washed over me momentarily, but it was quickly followed by dread. My husband had always been a man of routine. He would expect everything to be as it should be when he returned home from work. "Act normal," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He nodded, his expression unreadable as we both took a deep breath, attempting to compose ourselves before facing reality. As my husband entered, a wave of familiarity swept over me. His presence filled the room like an old song that played on repeat. Yet beneath that surface comfort lay an undercurrent of tension that neither of us could ignore. He glanced at me first, then at his son, suspicion flickering in his eyes for just a moment before it was masked by a practiced smile. "How was your day?" he asked casually, setting down his briefcase with a thud that echoed through the silence. "Fine," I replied too quickly, my heart racing as I felt his gaze linger on me longer than usual. "Just fine," he probed further, his tone light but edged with something sharper beneath. I forced a smile and turned away to pour myself a glass of water from the kitchen sink. The coolness of the glass felt grounding against my palm as I tried to steady my thoughts. Outside, Seattle's skyline glimmered in the evening light, a beautiful facade hiding all sorts of chaos beneath its surface. As we settled into our evening routine, dinner at the table where laughter once echoed, I couldn't shake off the feeling that everything was about to unravel. My husband's phone buzzed repeatedly on the table between us. Each notification sent jolts of anxiety through me as I wondered if he had seen anything suspicious. Dinner dragged on under an oppressive silence punctuated only by forks scraping against plates and forced small talk about mundane details, work projects and upcoming family gatherings that felt more like obligations than celebrations now. Then came another twist, an unexpected family gathering planned for this weekend, a celebration for my husband's promotion at work. The news hit like a tidal wave. It would mean facing everyone together while trying to keep our secret hidden in plain sight. "We should invite everyone," my husband suggested with enthusiasm that felt out of place given our current tension. "It'll be good for you two to see everyone again." I nodded mechanically while trying to suppress the rising tide of panic within me. There would be no escaping this situation. Secrets have a way of surfacing when least expected. Later that night, after saying goodnight to him and pretending everything was fine, I found myself sitting alone in the dim light of our living room staring blankly at old photographs lining the shelves, moments frozen in time where happiness seemed effortless and uncomplicated. But now those images felt like ghosts haunting me with memories that were no longer mine alone. They belonged to someone else entirely now too. When had life become so complicated? I glanced at my phone out of habit. There were no new messages from him, the stepson who had turned my world upside down without even trying, and yet every minute without hearing from him stretched painfully long. The next morning brought more unease as my husband left early for work again. He seemed distracted lately, preoccupied with something beyond our home life that I couldn't quite grasp yet felt looming ominously over us all like dark clouds threatening rain. Just after he left, I received a call from one of his colleagues, a friendly voice asking about weekend plans for celebrating together. But her words took on an urgent tone when she mentioned something troubling regarding my husband's job security due to recent changes within their company structure. "Have you heard anything?" she asked cautiously as if sensing my hesitation. "No, not really," I replied slowly while trying not to let panic seep into my voice despite feeling it rise within me like bile-threatening release. "There are rumors, layoffs might happen soon," she continued softly but firmly enough for me to hear her concern clearly through static-filled lines connecting us across city blocks separating our lives apart now more than ever before. Her words hung heavily in air long after we hung up, the weight settling deep into my chest reminding me how fragile everything truly was right now, not just between us but also within this family unit we had built together over years filled with love and laughter once upon a time before all these complications emerged seemingly overnight. As evening approached again bringing shadows creeping across walls around me, I found myself wandering outside into nearby park where familiar paths wound through trees swaying gently overhead, a soothing balm against anxiety gnawing inside relentlessly demanding attention without respite. There amidst nature's embrace, I closed eyes inhaling deeply feeling warmth enveloping skin while letting thoughts drift freely away until suddenly memories surfaced unbidden. His laughter echoing through air, shared moments together, feeling alive amidst chaos swirling around us both. A text message interrupted those reveries, sending waves crashing back down onto shores once calm. Can we meet tonight? The simple inquiry sparked fire, igniting desires buried beneath layers, guilt, shame, confusion, tangled emotions tangled tightly together, leaving little room to breathe. What would happen if we met? Would we dare cross lines already drawn? Or would fear hold us captive forever? My heart raced anew as possibilities unfolded before me like petals blooming, slowly revealing beauty hidden beneath layers, still waiting patiently to discover what lay ahead. But then another thought pierced through clarity. What if someone saw? What if secrets spilled out into open air, carrying consequences far beyond anything imagined? The weight settled heavily upon shoulders, pressing down hard, suffocating hope, dimming lights flickering, faintly illuminating paths ahead, uncertain, twisting, turning, unpredictable, leaving only questions lingering unanswered, hanging thickly around like fog, cloaking reality, obscuring truth, veiled behind shadows lurking ever closer, threatening reveal what remained hidden deep inside, hearts yearning desperately connect beyond barriers built high, strong, fortified against vulnerability feared most. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, casting a soft glow on the table where I sat, clutching my coffee like a lifeline. The aroma was comforting, but it couldn't mask the tension that lingered in the air. My mind was a whirlpool of confusion and fear. The anonymous message had shaken me deeply, echoing doubts I had tried to suppress. Someone knows, it had said simply, but its implications were anything but simple. I glanced at my phone again, half expecting another notification to pop up, another reminder of the precariousness of my situation. But there was nothing. Just silence that felt louder than any noise. I knew I should speak to him, my stepson, before things spiraled further out of control. But what could I say? The very act of addressing our situation felt like stepping onto a tightrope stretched high above a chasm. Are you okay? My husband's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back into reality. He stood in the doorway, his brow furrowed with concern. Just tired, I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He nodded slowly and stepped further into the room, pouring himself a cup of coffee as well. You've been distant lately. I'm fine, I insisted, though my voice lacked conviction. The truth was too complicated to articulate. As he turned away to look out the window, I caught sight of him glancing at his phone, a habit he'd developed over the years that often left me feeling ignored and unimportant. Was he checking for messages from work? Or was he searching for something more personal? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. After breakfast, I decided to head to the local cafe near Pike Place Market, a place filled with life and energy that might distract me from my spiraling thoughts. The vibrant atmosphere buzzed with laughter and conversation as I settled into my usual corner seat by the window. My friend arrived shortly after, her expression brightening when she saw me. You look like you need this, she said playfully as she slid a pastry across the table toward me. Thanks, I murmured, taking a bite while trying to mask my inner turmoil with small talk about her recent vacation. But as we chatted about trivial matters, the weather and local events, I felt an itch in my chest urging me to confide in her about everything that had been happening. I've been struggling with some things, I finally admitted. Her brow furrowed slightly in concern as she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper despite our surroundings buzzing with activity. What kind of things? I hesitated before speaking again. It felt like opening Pandora's box. It's about him, my stepson. Her eyes widened slightly before she nodded encouragingly for me to continue. I don't know how it happened or why, but there's this connection between us. As soon as the words left my mouth, they hung heavily between us, a confession laden with implications. She raised an eyebrow thoughtfully before responding carefully, is it just physical? Or is there more? A lump formed in my throat as I considered her question. I don't know anymore, I admitted softly. It started as something innocent, but now. You're scared, she prompted gently. Terrified. We fell into silence for a moment. Around us, laughter echoed and coffee machines hissed rhythmically, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing inside me. Maybe you need to end it before it gets worse, she suggested cautiously. The suggestion stung more than expected. It felt like an accusation rather than advice. It's not that simple. Why not? She leaned back slightly, crossing her arms defensively. Because there's something real there. Her expression softened slightly at that admission. Perhaps she understood better than I thought. But then she asked pointedly, what if someone finds out? The question hung heavy in the air again, a reminder of all that was at stake if our secret were exposed. Just then, another message pinged on my phone, this one from him, and dread pooled in my stomach as I quickly opened it. I need to see you. My heart raced at his words. They echoed in my mind long after reading them aloud silently just for myself. I need to see you. I have to go, I blurted out suddenly without thinking further about it. What? Now? My friend looked alarmed by my abruptness but also intrigued by what lay beneath the surface of urgency driving me forward. Yes, I replied firmly despite uncertainty gnawing at me inside like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. As soon as I stepped outside into Seattle's crisp air filled with hints of rain approaching later in the day, my heart pounded harder against its cage within me. The city around seemed alive yet distant all at once while navigating through throngs bustling along Pike Place Market toward our meeting point at one of those familiar parks nearby where we often found solace amidst chaos swirling around us both. When we finally met under an old oak tree whose branches swayed gently above us like guardians keeping watch over our secret rendezvous, I could see anticipation etched across his face mingling with anxiety reflecting back from mine too. An unspoken understanding passed between us without needing words spoken aloud yet still somehow resonating deeply within hearts yearning desperately connect amidst barriers built high strong fortified against vulnerability feared most. I got your message, I began tentatively while searching his gaze for answers hidden behind those familiar eyes now transformed by time into something deeper more complex than before. I can't stop thinking about you, he confessed quietly almost breathlessly underlining weight carried within those words, a confession echoing sentiments shared countless times since our paths intertwined once again after so many years apart. But then came another twist. The sound of footsteps approached rapidly behind us interrupting whatever fragile moment we had created together shattering illusions built high around hearts vulnerable exposed now beneath watchful gaze threatening reveal truths long buried deep down hidden away from prying eyes seeking solace amidst chaos swirling around us both. Before either of us could react fully or prepare ourselves for what might come next, I turned instinctively toward source noise only to see someone familiar standing just beyond reach staring wide-eyed disbelief written plainly across their features reflecting shock mirrored back onto mine revealing consequences unfolding rapidly beyond anything imagined possible moments ago when everything felt safe secure cocooned away from prying eyes lurking nearby watching waiting patiently ready strike. When least expected. In that instant, everything shifted irrevocably leaving behind remnants once familiar now transformed forever altering dynamics shifting foundations built upon trust loyalty shattered pieces scattered across ground beneath feet threatening collapse entirely under weight carried within. Hearts yearning desperately connect beyond barriers built high strong fortified against vulnerability feared most. The figure before me, a familiar silhouette against the backdrop of my chaotic emotions, was a jarring reminder of everything I had tried to compartmentalize. It was as if time had folded in on itself, bringing forth the past in a way I never anticipated. The shock on his face mirrored my own turmoil, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken connection that had grown between us. Jessica, he finally managed to utter, his voice barely above a whisper, laced with confusion and concern. I could see the questions swirling in his eyes, each one more daunting than the last. How could I explain what had transpired? The moments shared that felt so innocent yet held an undercurrent of something deeper? I took a step back instinctively, creating distance both physically and emotionally. The warmth of our shared experiences now felt like a burden rather than a comfort. "What are you doing here?" My question hung in the air like an uninvited guest at a party. "I came to see you," he replied, his honesty disarming me further. I thought, maybe we could talk? The weight of his words pressed down on my chest. Talk about what? The secrets we had woven together in stolen moments? The guilt that threatened to consume me? The thrill that came with every glance exchanged? My mind raced through possibilities, but I couldn't find the words to articulate any of it. Before I could respond, another voice broke through the tension, a voice that belonged to my husband, emerging from the shadows of our home like an unwelcome specter. "What's going on here?" His tone was sharp and accusatory, instantly shifting the atmosphere from tentative intimacy to palpable conflict. Caught off guard, I turned toward him. I was just what? He interrupted, his eyes darting between us as if searching for clues hidden in our expressions. "You didn't think I'd notice you two sneaking around?" The accusation hung heavily in the air as my heart raced. This confrontation felt inevitable. It was only a matter of time before my actions caught up with me. "It's not what you think," I stammered, desperation creeping into my voice. "Then what is it?" he demanded, crossing his arms defensively over his chest. In that moment, clarity struck me like lightning. This wasn't just about me anymore, it involved everyone around us. My stepson's face reflected a mixture of fear and regret as he took a small step back from me, an unintentional admission of guilt that felt like a betrayal even though it wasn't meant that way. "I need to explain," I said slowly, trying to regain control over the spiraling situation. "Explain what?" My husband's voice dripped with skepticism. But before I could form any coherent response, my stepson spoke up again, his tone steady despite the chaos surrounding us. "We've been talking about things." He hesitated but pressed on regardless of how inappropriate this moment felt. "Things that matter." My husband's brow furrowed deeper as he processed this new information. "Things that matter? Like what? Secrets?" The word hung ominously between us. Secrets were indeed lurking just beneath the surface, threatening to erupt if not addressed immediately. But how could I confess when honesty would shatter everything? "I think we should all sit down and talk," my stepson suggested cautiously. "No." My husband's outburst echoed through our home like thunder rolling across an open sky. "This isn't some family therapy session. You two have crossed a line." My heart sank further into despair as realization dawned on me. There was no way out without hurting someone deeply, perhaps everyone involved. "We've done nothing wrong," I asserted weakly but knew it rang hollow against the backdrop of our escalating confrontation. He stepped closer to me now. Anger simmered just below the surface of his demeanor while confusion clouded my ability to respond rationally. "You think this is nothing?" His voice lowered dangerously as he gestured toward our stepson with disdain. "You think this is okay?" "No. That's not." Before I could finish my thought or push back against his accusations any further, another twist unfolded before us. The sound of footsteps approaching from behind drew all attention away from our heated exchange. A neighbor stood at the threshold, a witness drawn by curiosity or concern over raised voices spilling out into the evening air. Their presence only amplified my sense of dread. Now there were more eyes scrutinizing our fractured family dynamics. I glanced at my stepson again. Uncertainty flickered across his features as if he too recognized how precarious this situation had become. "Maybe we should go inside," he suggested quietly after exchanging glances with both of us. "No." My husband insisted once more but faltered under pressure when faced with another pair of eyes watching from outside, the weight of judgment palpable even at such distance. "Please," I whispered urgently now. Perhaps it was desperation guiding my plea rather than logic itself, but something needed to change before everything unraveled completely before all witnesses present. After several agonizing seconds filled with silence thick enough to cut through glass, the neighbor finally turned away without comment, leaving us alone once more within these four walls filled with memories too painful to confront openly right now amidst all current turmoil surrounding us. As soon as they disappeared from sight, tension returned tenfold, the air crackling around us like electricity waiting for release, but where would that release lead? I can't keep doing this, I admitted, finally breaking down barriers built high around vulnerability long ago forgotten amid life's distractions and responsibilities demanding attention elsewhere, instead focusing inwardly upon myself for once instead. What do you mean by this? My husband pressed harder, still unwilling yet unable fully comprehend depths reached beneath surface-level conversations held between each other lately without ever truly acknowledging consequences looming overhead, threatening collapse entirely beneath weight, carried within hearts yearning desperately connect beyond barriers built high, strong, fortified against vulnerability feared most. I mean, my voice trailed off into uncertainty again as doubt crept back into focus. It all felt too overwhelming now, without clear answers leading forward toward resolution desired yet so far out of reach, still lingering beyond grasp altogether. But perhaps deep down inside, I already knew there were no easy answers left waiting patiently nearby, ready offer solace either way chosen next. In this moment marked by conflict and raw emotion, I understood one thing clearly. Choices made would resonate far beyond immediate implications, transforming lives irrevocably, forever changing paths laid ahead whether willing accept consequences or not. And then came another revelation crashing down upon me. Loyalty versus passion would define everything moving forward. What price would be paid ultimately for decisions made tonight? As uncertainty loomed larger than life itself, I braced myself, knowing full well repercussions awaited just beyond horizon, blurring lines drawn clearly between right-wrong, leaving only chaos behind, waiting patiently strike when least expected. I stood in the living room, heart racing as my husband confronted me about the messages he had seen. His voice trembled with a mix of anger and hurt, each word slicing through the air like a knife. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, suffocating in its intensity. "What's going on?" he demanded, eyes searching mine for answers. "You've been distant. I can see it." The truth hung between us, thick and unyielding. I wanted to scream that it wasn't his fault, that the growing chasm in our marriage had left me vulnerable to feelings I never anticipated. But instead, silence enveloped me like a shroud. "I can't believe you would betray me like this," he continued, pain evident in his tone. "With him? Of all people?" His words struck a nerve. Betrayal echoed in my mind, twisting into a knot of guilt and shame. I had crossed lines I never thought I would dare to approach. In those moments of passion and connection with my stepson, I had lost sight of everything that once mattered. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I finally managed to whisper, but even as the words left my lips, they felt inadequate, a feeble attempt to explain an unexplainable situation. He shook his head slowly, disappointment etched across his face. "You think that makes it better? You think you can just brush this aside?" The room felt small, stifling under the weight of our shared history. Memories flooded back, the laughter over family dinners, the warmth of shared mornings filled with coffee and sunlight filtering through the kitchen window. Now those memories felt tainted by my choices. "Please," I begged softly. "Let's talk about this." "Talk?" he scoffed bitterly. "What is there to talk about? You've made your choice." In that moment of heated exchange, another revelation struck me. My stepson was not just an innocent bystander caught in our tumultuous web, he was part of this chaos too, an unwitting participant in a game where hearts were at stake. "I need to see him," I blurted out before I could stop myself. His eyes widened with shock and disbelief. "You want to see him after everything?" "Yes." "No. I don't know." My voice cracked under the strain of emotion swirling within me. The thought of facing him again sent waves of anxiety crashing over me, yet there was an undeniable pull drawing me back to him, a connection that defied reason. Why? So you can tell him how you feel? My husband's tone dripped with sarcasm. No, I replied firmly but quietly. So we can figure out what this all means. And what does it mean? He shot back sharply. I hesitated, grappling with the truth that lay just beneath the surface, an acknowledgement that had been gnawing at my conscience since his return home. Feelings were involved now, emotions tangled together like threads in a frayed tapestry. I don't know, I admitted finally, feeling exposed and vulnerable under his scrutiny. He exhaled sharply as if struck by something unseen. You need to decide what you want. The gravity of his words weighed heavily on my chest. Clarity eluded me like smoke slipping through fingers grasping desperately for solid ground amidst shifting sands. Moments passed in silence as we both wrestled with our thoughts, the tension palpable between us like an electric current ready to spark at any moment. Then came a knock at the door, a sound so ordinary yet charged with significance given our current predicament. Who is it? My husband asked warily as he moved toward the entrance cautiously. I don't know, I replied instinctively, but deep down inside, dread settled into my stomach like lead weighing me down further into despair. When he opened the door, my heart sank at the sight before us. My stepson stood there looking uncertain yet resolute, a mixture of apprehension and longing etched across his features as if sensing something monumental hung in balance between us all. Can we talk? He asked tentatively, his voice steady despite the storm brewing within me. I exchanged glances with my husband, unsaid words passed between us, confusion mingling with betrayal, and suddenly everything felt irrevocably altered by this unexpected turn of events unfolding before our very eyes. Yes, I finally said softly but firmly, knowing full well that whatever happened next would change everything forever. As we stepped outside into the crisp Seattle air tinged with autumn leaves swirling around us like whispers from another time, I sensed an impending storm brewing not just within ourselves but also amongst each other, a reckoning waiting patiently on the horizon just beyond reach.